Good day to everybody. Thank you for joining this program. And this initiative was started by the IES 1980 batch of Indian Economic Service officers. Uh, the idea is to discuss the contemporary developmental issues. Those issues may be global, may be regional, may be South Asian, and maybe India specific. The idea is to exchange opinion and thoughts and also exchange whatever readings we had so that all of us can benefit, and more than that, to put on table our thoughts on contemporary developmental issues, so that our youngsters and other people can really follow, and we can express to them in an intelligible and easy way some of the developmental issues, because these are very, very important for citizenry to formulate their views how our nation or how the world or how the region should organize its actions for accelerated development. This is the second session, and we had first session which was very successful, and it's very important topic, growth versus human welfare. And after that, I find a lot of articles that have come on the eve of country's Independence Day. So that has become a very important topic. My name is Nirmal Ganguly. I also, like all my friends, belong to Indian Economic Service 1980 batch. Uh, uh, so uh, all of us have put in about four decades of service in the developmental arena, in the government of India, in the state government, in the international institutions, and many of us have been trained in premier national economic institutes and universities, and also universities abroad, and also have served in the institution abroad. So we feel that we have gathered so much of experience of over 4 decades. So let us share our experience. That is the idea. And with that idea, we want to carry on. We'll take up each issue in a predetermined manner so people can organize their thoughts and speak on this issue. So today's discussion is very important, topical, and also of great policy significance. This is the issue of the finances of the government of India, the impact of COVID on the finances of the government of India. COVID has really made everything topsy turvy. It has changed our life like anything. It has brought in so many divides in our life: digital divide, educational divide, vaccine divide, and all kinds of strife. But there is opportunity in every crisis. So Dr. Sharad Kumar, who has put in more than 40 years in the government of India, and on in various economic ministries. He retired as senior economic advisor in government of India, and he's considered to be a real intellectual and kind of thinker in the Indian Economic Service, and he has multi-departmental experience, and he's the author of quite a few books, and he has written copious articles. And what I'll do is that on the topic of impact of COVID on central government finances, I'll share his paper, screen share his paper. Basically, he will explain three tables that he has presented in his paper. So please give me 1 minute time to screen share his paper. I'll just screen share his paper. So Sharad's paper is already here. So I'll go to the I'll go to the first table.
Yes.
Are you able to see the first table, all of you?
Yes.
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 So, Sharad, you are able to see the first table?
I can see it. That's perfectly all right.
Okay, you can explain so that please give your presentation. We are eagerly waiting for your very much awaited presentation.
Thank you, Nirmal. So we can start our discussion on the topic of impact of COVID-19 pandemic on central government finances. I chose this topic all the more because we have spent most of our time serving the central ministries in the government of India. And there's no denying that the year 2020 was a very difficult year globally. It is true, as far as government of India is concerned, it did react to, you see, taking a decision to control the pandemic. And the government of India, you see, announced a lockdown for 21 days beginning from March 24th, 2020 to May 2020. Now, this was much admired everywhere, and this did control things which could have become very difficult. But what the government of India could not anticipate was the impact on the workers. In fact, as far as the workers working in the metropolitan cities and other towns are concerned, though they could withstand for a fortnight, they had some savings. But beyond 2 weeks, there was a difficulty for sustenance, and they began moving towards their villages. And as we know, the transportation was also not available. So they started walking to their villages, either or taking the help of their cycles, which was very, very embarrassing to all the other citizens in the country. And to, you see, make things very difficult when they reached their villages, they found unwelcome there also because people were afraid of the infections. But well, very, you see, heart-rending stories, and we were told that, well, the wives came forward and they said that, well, if we have to die, we like to die together. So on their persuasion, the villagers gave in, and these people, the migrant laborers, were taken home. That was as far as the one aspect of this crisis was concerned. At the same time, it was quite evident that because of the lockdown, the finances of the government of India would also be affected. The tax collection and non-tax collections will go down. And as we came to know retrospectively, in the first quarter of the FY 2021, the economy declined by 25%. And as a consequence, what we notice, if you look at the central government finances, as it is shown in the table there also, that against the estimated, you see, tax revenue of 16.36 lakh crores, in the RE we find that the tax revenue was only 13.44 lakh crores. Similarly, the non-tax revenue also declined from 3.85 lakh crores to 2.1 lakh crores. And again, if you look at the total expenditure, it increased by almost 5 lakh crores during the same period. So what we noticed that there was a shortfall of revenue received by 5 lakh crores, an increase in public expenditure by 5 lakh crores. So this meant a gap of 10 lakh crores. And naturally, the government had to make all kinds of efforts. And in their best wisdom, they did make an attempt. They divided all the ministries into three categories: A, B, C, and C. A, B, and C. And they said that, well, as far as ministries falling in the A category, for instance, the health ministry and such like ministries, they would be supported as far as whatever requirement would be there for them. And then we have the B category and the C category ministries. They were told that, well, they should cut down their expenditure, and they indicated by what margin. So the B and C category ministries were told to keep their or restrict their expenditure by 20% and 15% respectively each quarter. But well, this was not good enough to meet the fiscal deficit, and the government had to resort to public borrowings. Now, naturally, we need to understand also how did the government manage as far as this requirement of public borrowing was concerned. And here, you see, what we notice is, can we go to the second table?
Sure. Sure, I'm doing it. Here you are able to see?
Yes, yes. So as we can see on the screen, you see we had the 5 or 6 instruments available with the government: market borrowings, national savings, state provident funds, external debt, drawdown, and of course cash receipts. Now, out of these 6 instruments, we noticed that the maximum increase was in the case of market borrowings, where the borrowings went up from 5,35,000 crores to 12,73,000 crores. So the market borrowings were the biggest chunk as far as the sources of financing the fiscal deficit was concerned. Then another instrument on which they banked upon was national small savings, where against the budgeted estimate of 2,40,000 crores, the RE figure was 4,80,574 crores. That means that was double. The next important source of financing was external debt. Here I am a bit surprised. Why did they go for such a big number, which they could have raised from inside the country? The figure was originally 4,622 crores. It went up to 54,522 crores. So, well, these were the different forms of borrowings the government resorted to. And in regard to market borrowings also, what we noticed that the government had 2 options: go for the treasury bills, which are short duration bonds, and go for G6, government securities. Generally, I noticed that it was extending to a maturing period of 10 years. So, if it was GSEC in large magnitude, it can also be called as debt monetization. But that apart, well, this was the structure as far as the market borrowings of the government of India was concerned. Now, from here, so what we notice in the aggregate is that, well, against the budgeted estimate of 7,96,337 crore, the government had a fiscal deficit of 18,48,655 crores. In fact, why I wanted to emphasize on these tables was that, first of all, the kinds of announcements which were coming were not very confusing, not clear. And then, although everybody was concerned and there was an indication of what must be happening, people were not sure as far as what was the magnitude of the crisis or the problem, the magnitude of the fiscal deficit, etc. So, well, now this becomes quite clear what was the magnitude like as far as the amount of actual fiscal deficit was there. Now, this was by way of introduction. Then, you see, I was equally interested that what happened as a response to COVID in India and also USA. So here I have built a comparison between the initiatives taken in the USA and in India in regard to both fiscal and monetary policies. So yes, this is table 3. And I would first like to mention what initiatives the government of India took. So as we can see, the reasons for the higher fiscal deficit arose from these measures. So what we see is that the government of India raised the food subsidy from rupees 1,07,000 crores to 2,78,000 crores. This was certainly much required, and this was a very correct decision. Along with that, they also increased the allocation of money for Manrega, which went up from 61,500 crores to 1,11,500 crores. This was also very much justified, no denying about that, and it has helped. It did help the people who migrated to the villages and were looking for a source of income. Then next expenditure was on National Health Mission, which went up from 34,115 crores to rupees 35,550 crores. I mean, I'm at a loss to understand why this increase was so little. So that is one thing. Then the other good things which did happen, in fact, everybody was saying that, well, we need to put money in the hands of the people. And prior to this crisis of COVID, the government had announced one scheme, Kisan Samman Yojana, where the government was, you see, making direct cash transfers to small farmers. And this was also a big amount. So this amount was 65,000 crores, which in a way was good. But here I may mention that, well, the interest of the small farmers was taken care of. The number of small farmers in India has been put somewhere around 12 crores. Against this, you have another very large group, namely landless labor, and their number is 14 crores. Now, naturally, since they are landless, they cannot claim this benefit. So I would have certainly liked that some attention should have been paid to them. And if this direct cash transfer takes care of the Kisan's small farmers, there should be something for the landless labor also. There is no denying that, well, they were partly taken care of under Manrega, and there was this food subsistence kind of a subsidy being provided to them against the, you see, market price of 22 rupees of, let us suppose, wheat per kg. The food was being provided to everyone at the price of 3 rupees and 2 rupees. 3 rupees for rice per kg and 2 rupees for per kg of wheat. So that is there. But I think one can certainly build in, you see, what we know as direct cash transfers also to the landless labor. In fact, there are externalities which have been much appreciated as far as this direct cash transfer to small farmers are concerned, in the way that, well, all the data is now available. And once the data and such informations are available, you can formulate better policies. So if that can happen for this, in the case of the small farmers, I think the policy makers can take advantage similarly if there is a similar kind of exercise done for the landless labor. That is one thing. But then people benefited also by way of assistance under PM Awas Yojana, where the allocations were raised from 27,500 crores to 40,000 crores. So that is one thing. Now, we can come here to what happened in the case of USA as far as fiscal measures are concerned. Now, this is also equally interesting. The USA also faced a big crisis and people were losing their jobs. So it came up with relief packages in quick succession. One was on March 6, another on March 18, then on March 27, and then again on April 20. So in on March 6, they released an amount of $8.3 billion. On March 18th, they released another amount of $3.4 billion. But then, perhaps this was not sufficient. Then you find that another relief package was announced amounting to $2.3 trillion, which has been claimed to be the biggest ever relief package in US history. In fact, these are all very bold decisions. Again, in April 20, they released a fund of $484 billion. Now, the question arises here, how did they come to decide this figure of $2.3 trillion? Now, one argument can be that you see, it was a question of demand management, and perhaps they had a group of economists to advise. In fact, I must say that, well, I am, you see, making a very hazardous guess, but nonetheless, let me attempt, and I would welcome comments from the colleagues. What I feel, 2-3 things could have happened here. One is that in USA, they have a very good system of giving unemployment insurance. This unemployment insurance is not to the newly unemployed, but who have been working and who have lost their job. And there is a reason that, well, they have lost their job not for their reasons. So if people lose their jobs, naturally to that extent, the consumption demand in the economy comes down. And as we know that, well, this demand management, you see the consumption plus investment plus net export, that has to be managed if you want to ensure growth in the future. So in order to, have everything going on smoothly, if the incomes were not there, the government, on its own provided this income support and ensured that, well, the economy functions in the old fashion. That is one reason. But there's another very straightforward reason which appears to me is that when they started calculating the demand for unemployment insurance, this itself was 460 billion. So they had this straight figure with them. And then they had other, supports, which, as we see subsequently, assistance to American families, assistance to small businesses, assistance to state and local governments, assistance to research institutions for manufacture of the vaccine. So it made a good deal of sense. I also noticed that, well, subsequently, when you look at the total fiscal deficit of USA, it is somewhere around 15%. In comparison, the fiscal deficit of India was 9.5% of GDP. Now, what is this figure of 15.5% of fiscal deficit as far as USA is concerned? My hunch is that, well, they could anticipate that because of this COVID, there would be a decline in the GDP by 15.5%. And therefore, based on this anticipation, they pumped in a fiscal deficit of 15.5%. Now, this is my guess. I would certainly like my friends to compliment or correct me on this, but that is one argument. So we find that, well, the fiscal measures in USA were uh, quite distinct and very bold. Uh, that is one thing. And another, you see, a point which has been made in the case of USA is that their whole strategy was geared by midterm growth target rather than the immediate relief. Whereas in the Indian case, it was more a kind of a providing relief to the people. There was no perhaps growth strategy, which now in the end, what we notice is that the growth rate in USA is much better than what it is in India. So this is something debatable and to understand better, but I am just flagging the issue for everybody's interest. Now, in addition to fiscal measures, we also notice that we had monetary measures both by the RBI and the Fed. So what we notice is that Fed cut the interbank interest rate by 0.5% on March 3, 2020. It further reduced this rate by 1% on March 16, 2020. Now this lead appears to have been also taken by the RBI. The RBI also reduced the repo rate first on March 27 from 5.15% to 4.4%. Then again it reduced the repo rate in May 2020 from 4.4% to 4%. Now, similarly, the Fed reduced the CRR for commercial banks. RBI also reduced the CRR from 4% to 3% in November 2020 for the commercial banks. And once again, similarly, as far as the Fed bought treasury bills and bonds as part of its quantitative easing program, similarly, the RBI also injected liquidity in the market amounting to 13.6 lakh crores. Now, this can be further expanded and understood. Well, I cannot claim much competence in that, but I think this also issue is quite an important issue. So, this is what I can say as far as the comparison between India and USA is concerned. Now, in conclusion, I certainly would like to say that I have a few questions to raise. For instance, should India have incurred a higher fiscal deficit? That is one. And if yes, what should be the thumb rule for determining the magnitude of this fiscal deficit? Can it be that, well, we anticipate the magnitude of the decline and the fiscal deficit should be equal to the magnitude of deficit? Yes, the decline in the GDP. In fact, as far as financing of fiscal deficit is concerned, we should not compare it with any company or the corporate sector, because there they have to ensure that the returns are higher than the cost. In the case of public finance, I feel that, well, there is this consideration of the relationship between the rate of growth and the tax and not revenue receipt of the government. For instance, from my personal experience, I can tell you that during the 8th five-year plan, I saw a very good correlation between the rate of growth and what you call, tax and non-tax revenue. So then the figure which we arrived at was that 1% of growth in the economy led to a 7,000 crores increase in tax and non-tax collections. So if you have 3%, then you can certainly have 21,000 crores of increase in tax collection. Similarly, now the figures are very different with the inflation, etc., etc. So I would assume that 1% increase, let us suppose, will get you 30,000 crores of increase. And if you can have 5% rate of growth, your increase in the revenue, non-tax revenue collection would be like 1,50,000 crores. So if you have taken a fiscal deficit of 1 lakh crores, it is not a big issue. And also there is another aspect as far as the fiscal deficit is concerned. We have the example of Germany, where they say that, well, if you have taken the borrowings as based on a 20-year security or bond, a 10-year security bond, there is inflation also happening. So what they realized that the original principle of the fiscal deficit in real terms was declining like anything. And over a period of 10 to 20 periods, in fact, it became nil. That means inflation evaporated the debt. So that is also one example. But well, one has to understand this. There is no denying that, well, you see, the ability in the government is great deal more now. Uh, the quality of the economic survey is also has gone up. So such things or trade-offs can certainly be looked into more wisely and carefully, and should be done. And also, I felt that, well, as we have seen, or at least I have made this hazardous guess in the case of USA, that if they had this demand for unemployment insurance, it automatically tells by what magnitude you should have fiscal deficit, because the kind of decline in consumption is automatically taken care of if you provide this I see, support by way of fiscal deficit. So this also needs to be examined very carefully, and I would certainly welcome comments. Uh, and naturally, I would certainly say that, well, we cannot be careless as far as fiscal deficit is concerned, and there should be a kind of a linkage between the expected rate of growth and the amount of fiscal deficit one wants to go. In fact, we have this difficult example of Africa, where they are saying that, well, they took the money from all kinds of people, including external debt, and they are not even able to service those debts. So now they have been given concession, etc., etc. So it should not be that, well, whatever amount of fiscal deficit is taken should be, let us suppose, spent on defense expenditure, which is very dangerous, as we have seen in the case of Greece also. Then you land into great difficulty. It should be certainly put to useful use. So these are the points with which I would like to close my, you see, analysis as far as the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on central government finances is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharad Kumar, for your excellent presentation. As always, you have provided a very comprehensive view of Government of India's finances in a very analytical manner and insightful manner, and especially the problem brought about by COVID and extra finances that were required. And one very important dimension you raised is that the growth rate, till now, for the last 2 decades, it is the emerging countries who are leading the growth. But now it is the developed countries who are now leading the growth, including US, and their growth rate is much higher. And they have somehow their revival has already started, whereas India and South Asia is still struggling, and the scarring effect of COVID is still very evident, and so we may need another 2 3 years to really revamp our economy. So that is one aspect. Another aspect is that the now, as per the Controller General of Accounts data, the 2021 fiscal deficit of the central government works out to 9.3%, 9.30%. So if that be so, and as per the estimate of state finances, it is being told about 4.6%. So if that be so, it will be around 14% of general deficit, because it is the whole economy. So again on 21-22, around 4% will be state deficit. And in addition, if we can really restrict our fiscal deficit to 6% or 7%, so we'll be little less than 2021. So with these words, we would like to hear from Ramesh Manchanda. Ramesh Manchanda has over 4 decades of developmental experience, and he has served in various ministries of the government of India. He has very rich experience in policy making and also policy implementation, and especially dealing with the central government finances while dealing in plan finance of the Department of Expenditure as director. And so he can really throw a lot of insight. So with these words, I would request Ramesh Manchanda to kindly give his comments and suggestions and thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nirmal. And congratulations first, Dr. Sharath, for making a very honest and sincere attempt in respect of a very relevant and important contemporary issue. The entire world has suffered in a big way from this pandemic, and intellectuals have been trying to examine the role of various governments, to what extent the kind of the measures they took were relevant, sufficient, or insufficient. So, in that context, I think let me congratulate you that you have done a great job. Thank you for that. However, Dr. Sharath, I'm not very sure if it's very appropriate to examine this kind of response of a government by comparing the finances of the government of India with the finances of the United States of America, the richest country in the world, very high per capita income, and the population level being a fraction of the Indian population. Second, even when we take that, since you have done this comparison, so I would like to comment on this comparison itself, the figures from the government of India budget and the figures of the United States of America. Now, one way is to take the comparison on the basis of, say, percentage of fiscal deficit with respect to the GDP. Yes, there you are right. They spent, their fiscal deficit was much higher than our fiscal deficit, which is now around 9-10%. And if we add, as Dr. Nirmal Ganguly has stated, it will go to up to 14 or 15%, very high figure. But since the very nature of the economy of United States of America and our economy is totally different, when we take something, any parameter of government finances as a percentage of GDP, we presume that the nature of the two economies is similar. It is not similar in the two cases. We are a developing economy. There, the moment they press any button, decline in some tax rates or increase in the expenditure, this has economy-wide impact. And in our case, a very large segment of the economy is outside the government control system. A large section of the economy is not even taxed, like agriculture income is not taxed in our country. So that way the GDP is not comparable. So another way to compare, which I would like to present, is, let us see, in your table you have given the government revenue, revised estimates of the year 2021, 15.55 lakh crore. And then expenditure is a little over 34.50 lakh crore. Fiscal deficit comes to 18.48 crore, 18.48 lakh crore. A similar figure in respect of USA, which is available on the net, which you have given on the only the fiscal deficit percentage figures, Now, I have got the total revenue figures of USA for the financial year 2021. Of course, their beginning month and end month are different. Now, the total revenue in respect of the United States of America was $3.8 trillion. $3.8 trillion. And their total expenditure was, in spite of all these big relief things, $6 trillion. So their fiscal deficit comes to $3 trillion. Now, the point I am trying to make is compare their total revenue and the fiscal deficit. In their case, the total revenue was $3.8 trillion and the fiscal deficit was $3.3 trillion. It was only 79% of their total revenues. In our case, the fiscal deficit is 108% of the total revenues. That means our fiscal deficit is more than our revenues. So I don't see any further scope. Even this is very risky, very dangerous, the kind of the fiscal deficit the government of India has incurred. It has very serious impact on so many things, including, impact on private investment, on inflation, etc., etc. So my first point is, when we compare to USA, the government of India has done a much better job in terms of spending the money. This is my first point. Now, when we see the various kind of measures taken, which I have given in a table, see the food subsidy increased from 1,07,320 crore to 2,78,000 crore, more than that, more than double, more than 250%. Big increase. What more the central government can do? Manrega, from 61,500 crore to almost double, 1,11,500 crore. And the people were being given food, rice 3 rupees per kg, wheat 2 rupees per kg. I think instead of seeing how much money they spent or how much money we spent, we should try to see the action taken by the government of India, given their constraints, given their financial position, and given nature of the economy. So personally, I feel that they spent quite an amount. Spending anything more than that is perhaps not even possible, not even desirable. And they vulnerable section they have taken very good care through food subsidy, through Manrega, and the Reserve Bank of India injected liquidity of 13.6 lakh crore. Not a small amount. Not a small amount. Maybe, the developed countries can spend much more because they have got this social security offices also, where in addition to the taxes which they collect, they also get every month from the salary of the employees certain amount which goes to the social security fund. I have got personal experience of United Kingdom, where I did my master's degree. Huge money is available there. Unfortunately, in this country, that kind of social security system has not been built. And personally, I feel, slightly out of the context also here, but please allow me to say that during the last 2, 3, 4 years, instead of doing something to increase the coverage of the social security system in the country, which has been there through giving tax benefits in terms of small saving schemes, through public provident fund, etc., etc. Slowly, these have been removed. These have been removed. Personally, I feel that we have to provide social security in a much, much bigger way, much, much bigger way. So if they can start collecting some money also through the way the developed countries they collect, there also there is no problem. But in all this, whatever the analysis you have done and whatever the figures I have been able to lay my hands on, I don't know to what extent we have got a very important organization called ESIC, Employees State Insurance Corporation. Immediately, the moment the labor they lose their job, they come into the picture. How much they spent? They spend from their fund. What kind of facilities they provided? That we have not been able to capture. I think that will be very important to capture. Now, my last comment, I support your argument that landless labor should be taken care in a much bigger way. Yes, they should be done. But but we should not forget the poor class, the poor laborer in the urban areas also. In the urban area also. They also need government assistance. I think that's all. I will stop here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramesh Manchanda, for your very, very insightful comments. And it comes out of experience and also the difficulties with the Indian government and also our paucity of resources. And also, Dr. Sharath also raised this issue. You also mentioned uh, taking care of the poor and also in the urban area. So in this respect, I think uh, urban Manrega was talked about. I think time has come where one must and see to it that urban Manrega is considered seriously, and also although the for normal Manrega last year huge money was provided, about 40,000 crores extra, but that can, because of the extraordinary situation that can be considered for further augmentation. Coming to one point, what is to be done for our rural people, agricultural sector, because Dr. Sharath also has dilated upon on this issue, and one of my colleagues who was earlier working for IMF, she wrote a piece in Telegraph also, and that is very, very important. That is, uh, the inequality and asymmetry of Indian economy is really very simply explained by the fact that about 50% of workers working in the who in the rural area, that is total 50% of India's workforce work in the agricultural area and rural area, and they account for only 15% of GDP. So unless we have a very systematic medium term and long term measure for transferring to them to urban areas, to set up agro-based industries, to set up industries in the semi-rural areas, this big problem will be there. So this structural problem needs to be addressed too. So thank you very much, Ramesh Manchanda, for your very detailed and comprehensive comments. Now I would request Rajiv, Dr. Rajiv Sebastian, to kindly give his thoughts. Dr. Rajiv also, like us, have more than four decades of developmental experience in various ministries and also various institutions, including Institute of Defense Analysis. And apart from that, he has been deeply involved in academics. So he has written about 25 books and various articles. So I would now request Dr. Rajiv Sebastian to give his thoughts. Thank you very much.
Rajiv, we cannot hear you. You unmute yourself.
At the outset, let me congratulate Sharath for his excellent presentation. My comments are on the corona pandemic and not on the financial aspect. India has gone through two waves of the corona pandemic. The second wave was particularly devastating. The country is now speculating about the possibility of a probable third wave. However, it is expected that the third wave will be less severe than the second. Here we talk about a possible scenario regarding the third wave. Under the first scenario, the third wave may hit us during the month of October. This wave is severe as the second, but it may be spearheaded by the Delta variant or some other new variant that will emerge. The second scenario is my favorite, and according to this, the third wave will practically be non existent. The wave, it won't be a, there won't be any third wave worth its name. But during the past post September period, the pandemic will be on the decline. During this period, the pandemic will become severe and eventually disappear. But traces of the pandemic will continue for one more year. I have no comments on the financial issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajiv, for your very pertinent comments on the COVID situation. Coming to COVID, now it looks like, of course, we were talking about vaccine inequity, and some poor are not getting access to vaccine world over. Africa is totally still no testing, no proper vaccination. But many of the thinkers, the civil servants, politicians, and economists are thinking that that the vaccination is the antidote. So really, India has to really mark up the vaccination drive, and that will really raise many of the issues, because if third wave comes, fourth wave comes, again there will be lockdown, again there will be disruption of the economy, GDP going down. So in such a situation, it will be very hard. So it is very necessary, because vaccine becomes the more important way to handle the situation. So all the economic measures, social measures are premised on acceleration of vaccination program. So that way, vaccination is very, very important. Now I would request Dr. Manas Bhattacharya to give his thoughts. And Dr. Manas Bhattacharya, like all of us, have 4 decades of developmental experience, both national and international. He served International Labour Organization, and he retired from ILO, and he was posted in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So we would request him to give his thoughts. Thank you. Dr. Manas, are you there? Dr. Manas, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And
Can
also come in camera if possible.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, okay.
Right.
Welcome.
First of all, I am quite impressed by Sharad's paper, and congratulations, Sharad. I mean, this is really thought-provoking. And Ramesh, being the expert of fiscal, analysis, has completely given a wonderful. That would have been another paper for today. In fact, I mean, it's really one cannot speak after Ramesh speaks about fiscal things. I mean we have all seen him functioning in finance ministry. Now, Sharad, I have only 2-3 points, nothing more than that. And excuse me because I am completely divorced from economics and particularly global economic trend and India and all that for a long time. But Nirmal has compelled me to join this group, but this is only affinity towards the batchmate that makes me participate even foolishly. Just Sharad, one thing is Ramesh has already compared it in great detail about the US and India comparison. There is another aspect of that. Macroeconomically, US has been always a indebted country, and this is because macroeconomically they say if there is a fiscal deficit, there is a pressure on the balance of payment, and but US can actually evade this because their debt is mostly external debt is mostly in dollars, in their own currency. So even if they can afford to be reckless, which India cannot. If India does indulge into the luxury of fiscal deficit, then it creates pressure on the external sector also and creates devaluation of the Indian rupee, and there's a lot of other consequences which will follow. So macroeconomically there is a danger, in comparing India's fiscal deficit with US. The other thing is, if Manchanda is in a better position to say, see what we see is a fiscal deficit number, and we don't know how they're really spent. To what extent? Like, take for example, we have like in many countries, particularly in South Asian countries, they have done a lot to boost supply of credit by the commercial banks, etc., etc. Now, really, how much of commercial bank credit is usually goes to stimulate demand? They're very shy of lending, except to some of the big borrowers. So that kind of the kind of monetary stimulus is the effectiveness of that to handle a crisis is really doubtful. And also, the efficacy of fiscal spending, how it is spent and how. So, because we are talking all about the COVID situation, as now Rajiv has mentioned, about COVID, he has brought it into the forefront. The problem with COVID is that really, even if you increase your fiscal deficit, where the money goes, to whom, and how does it effectively address the crisis which has been precipitated by COVID. So this is I will not be able to mention that. You are going by the efficacy of government expenditure, spending, and how it affects. It's very difficult to really say that even if the fiscal deficit increases by leaps and bounds, it's not going to really tackle the COVID issues and the exact need of money in the hands of some people during COVID in a very systematic manner. And there is no analysis anywhere properly done, which says that you give this money, population effect should be like this, and then it automatically boosts the economy in a way. And social security, which Ramesh has brought in a very big way. That is safety net was a very, very important target of our government spending during this kind of crisis. So there also we need to understand efficacy. Who are the guys who really suffered due to COVID? Where have they gone? How are you reaching money to them? So but it is not a criticism of your paper, because you have dealt with the issue in a very macroeconomic perspective. But the issue is that if somebody wants to really, this is an excellent time, because these 2 years, people will be able to understand really how efficient the government is. I'm not talking about the current government, because as such, government spending, how efficient the government spending in addressing this kind of a crisis situation, and to what extent the governance or failed governance contributes to it. Excuse me, I am not hinting at any government or any political party. I'm talking about governance in general, and in India, and like many other countries which suffer from failed governance, like that. To what extent actually it can really it is effective, much more effective in addressing the situation. So that can be, I mean, this is a time that researchers should really try to do some kind of a serious research about where the money has gone. How much was the fiscal deficit and where the money has gone, and to what extent it really addressed the COVID problems. So this kind of analysis is needed. And as Ramesh has correctly said, I mean, America, USA is a very well-tracked economy, very well organized and things like that. So the way things really affect in India is extremely difficult. That is why it is more important to have a research, detailed research about where the money has gone, to what extent this has been effective, and whether we should really shout about fiscal deficit when we talk about our target of addressing the COVID problems. I mean, the economic fallout of the COVID issues. So Nirmal, I think this is all that I need to say, and but very good. I mean, like all the three speakers from my batch. I mean, that's elaborately explained the different sides of this fiscal deficit issue and the COVID.
Thank you very much, Manas. And you have beautifully highlighted the point of utilization, the need to ensure about the governance issue, and ensuring that the money meant for the job is spent on that very purpose. And sort of we know that CAG comes out with audit report, but that is sometimes 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years old. So that is a very, very where the money is going, tracking the money, and whether if you are spending huge money, if it is not going to the target group. So even Raghuram Rajan also has been talking about all this universal income business or targeted income, or like Kisan Samman Yojana. It should needs to be targeted better, so that beneficiaries get the benefit. Sometimes Jandan money, some people say, is not going into or to the target area. Of course, a wonderful thing has been done, unique ID card. US had remitted all this money through checks, but India, at the time when no bank was working, the money was transferred to the beneficiary. So that shows that is a great kind of, if India did not have this kind of Aadhaar and unique identity card, that would not have been possible. But I would like to, while talking of COVID, I would like to take you to one issue, that is how much of health expenditure is how much of the GDP, because it's a health issue. And still, for a country like India, 3% should be absolutely minimum GDP, health sector expenditure, as a percentage of GDP, but it is still 1%. And health is a state subject. So much of it is to be borne out by the states, and states' finances are horrible. And again, the governance issue matter, and all those corruption issues are there, which need to be tackled. But in such a grave health issue, big challenge, how state governments, provincial governments will answer and to do their responsibility. Of course, there has to be perfect coordination with the government of India, central government, but this is a big issue. Both education and health are very, very big issue. Education is a concurrent subject, but education also we find a big divide, especially in the rural areas. The children are not keen to go back to the school, and whatever they have learned, John Dredge was saying a few days back that is even a seventh standard child cannot read a second standard book. So that is the rapid unlearning process that has come, and that has been brought about COVID. Already there was inequality which has been sharpened and accelerated. So I think we need to be both education investment, they have to be health investment targeted, and how provincial governments, state governments play their role. Now I would request Dr. Gangaiya to give his commentary, and also let me introduce Dr. Gangaiya. Dr. Gangaiya like all of us, have more than four decades of developmental experience. He has been very instrumental in advising the Andhra Pradesh government. He has been involved in the rural development sector also. If I'm not wrong, he served the National Institute of Rural Development and also the State Planning Board of Andhra Pradesh. So he has experience of directly dealing with the political masters. So he has a lot of governance experience too. So we would like to hear, we are very eager to hear his experiences and what does he feel. Dr. Gangaiya, thank you. Kindly, Dr. Gangaiya, kindly unmute yourself. Kindly unmute yourself. You are still muted. Dr. Gangaiya, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. So hi, Manas. It's a long time I have seen you. You didn't even join the last thing, but anyway, I think good to see you. Um, so I must congratulate Sharath. Hello. I must congratulate Sharath for really making a very good effort in analyzing the issues. And I think he's still in the service. The seriousness with which he has been, he has done the analysis and gathering all the data and making a presentation kind of thing. And I think it is a good, excellent presentation, the summary of what all that is required to be said on the topic. And also, I think Ramesh has also done a very. I think even after the retirement, we have not lost the capacity to analyze, and we are still doing some serious work. I think Ramesh has done excellent comments, and also Manas. So I have not had any stint in finance ministry to really make an expert comments, but basically mine are generic comments. Uh, Regarding the fiscal deficit, I agree with some of the experts. Though we have already lost control of this fiscal deficit, and we cannot exceed any more of this fiscal deficit at this time. But I think this is an extraordinary time, which should be exceptional from the rule, and we could have made a deviation from the general rules of finance in addressing the issue of pumping some liquidity and also incomes to the people. Particularly, I really appreciate Ramesh's point that urban sector was really neglected in the sense the huge now urban population is close to 50% in India, and a lot of them are in the informal sector and without much of means of income and livelihood. And this is the sector which has actually suffered major in this COVID crisis because the whole activity, all the economic activity, whether it is a service or industry, has suffered more in urban areas because agriculture, I know from the news and also from my own knowledge, agriculture, despite the COVID, actually went on in a very normal. In fact, the growth of agriculture did really suffer so much as the other small scale industry and other service sector in the urban sector. So I think the urban poor should have actually been addressed, their needs and their livelihood issues have been addressed with much more care and more resources. I think there's hardly any, of course, the rural farmers, farmers assistance is also actually exceptionally is actually not meant for consumption purpose. It is essentially meant for investment support for the agriculture to continue. So even there also the consumption suffered, but the urban non-formal sector people have actually suffered more. There actually I think we have really failed to address the needs, and there because of that all actually we have suffered a major economic decline. I think this is what the point I wanted to make. The second point regarding the comparison with USA, since now I'm now in USA, I'm reading some local things. So USA has, of course, has much more flexibility because of the international role the USA plays, particularly the role of the dollar in the international monetary system. Because of this advantage, they are able to have much more fiscal deficit and more debt than India. In fact, America has more debt. The percentage of GDP has more debt than India. So also Japan and some countries which are having now are able to manage because of their role in the international system. And we don't have so much of that kind of flexibility, but still, the fiscal deficit of 9% or whatever it has been should have been increased as advised by some of the economists like Rajan, taking this as an exceptional time and even going for some printing of money kind of deficit financing. I think that should have been that's one opportunity we missed, and particularly in supporting the urban sector, urban non-formal and small scale industries sector, which actually would have made some difference in the economic growth. This is a major thing. Of course, health health point also is very valid. We have not been able to really spend sufficient part of the our income in the on the health. Our health expenditure is less than 1%, which is very minuscule compared to many countries. And experts have advised 3% minimum, but we have never been able to even reach to even 2%, to leave alone 3%. I think this is, of course, the COVID has given the context and the opportunity to do this now, at least now, ramp up the health system and pour in more resources, because this problem is going to be there forever. The health insufficiency of health needs, health infrastructure in the country. I think hopefully this will be addressed, and the experts also warn that the COVID, the current 19 is not the last one. There are going to be more of this kind of viruses which will come in future. So we have to be prepared. Apart from the other regular health needs which our country is actually need to be addressed. So I think these are the 2 points which I wanted to say. I must once again thank Dr. Sharath for making a very good comprehensive presentation, and also all our participants. Good to see our Manas again. So Manas, where are you now? Located in Delhi?
Yeah. I'm in Delhi. In
Okay.
IES apartment.
Oh, very good. Good. So
So I
thank you.
didn't
Thanks a lot.
leave
Yeah.
the heart.
Okay, good. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Come
Nirmal.
over when you come to Delhi, okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
We will have an informal session for 10 minutes after recording is ended, so we can chit chat. Uh, Dr. Gangaiya raised a very, very important point. He reiterated what Ramesh Manchanda Saab told about urban unemployment and urban issues, and especially now the urban unemployment, as per the data of Center for Monitoring Indian Economy released by Mahesh Vyas, shows in double digit, and it is higher than the rural unemployment. Again, it is a matter of grave uh, it's a matter of grave importance, and that we need to be mindful about the labor participation rate uh, of women, and also the women wages, because that being so, because even as per the official statistics of NSSO, the labor force participation rate for women is only 20% compared to Bangladesh, which is 40%. And the other thing, which other day Rashid Premji raised on 14th August in Indian Express, that is, the women are getting less wages, so women's wage inequality issue needs to be addressed. So that is a very important issue. And now, Dr. Sharath, if you would like to respond to some of the things or his thoughts on various comments, various remarks, various observations made, and especially the US India comparison. US is more resourceful, India may not be so. But the as as Dr. Gangaya very rightly highlighted, that kind of there are thinking that there could have been some more expenditure to counter, but we have our fiscal issues. If we compare, it has been the direct help is 1.5 to 2% of GDP at the maximum, whereas there are economy 15 to 20%. But do we have the fiscal space? But many of the people are also now thinking that the time for direct cash assistance is gone. Now we have to really revamp our economy in terms of some medium-term investment like construction. So, and private sector can play a very important role. So, just a rejoinder to the issues raised, especially urban unemployment. And once again, I would like to say, as many of the top economists have been saying, that urban rural employment guarantee scheme also should be given a consideration. And with these words, I would request Dr. Sharath Kumar to say say what does he feel about the issues raised. Of course, Dr. Sharath has done an excellent macro presentation and gone deep, delved deep into the budget data. And thank you very much for the same. And Dr. Sharath Kumar.
So I'm audible now? So I am in full agreement with all the observations that have been made. In fact, I was aware of the different gaps which were there in my paper. It was a quick job, and I certainly look forward to people to supplement it, to further strengthen it. At the same time, I would like to say that, well, things are rather complex. They are beyond, I would say, common sense. So here the role of the economist does come. And we have to certainly build a kind of a strategy. And there are so many options. So that should be utilized. And naturally, we have to learn from rest of the world also. And these are quite challenging times. We cannot only worry about ourselves. There's similar situation, a more difficult situation in Africa, South America, etc., etc. And I think they look forward to some kind of a leadership role. And is it true that, well, we are living in the comfort of retirement? So, but with all our limitations, well, I did this paper at the behest of the request of Nirmal. So a lot of credit should go to Nirmal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharath. I was, all of us are very keen that Ramesh can give his further commentary and sort of what he thinks can be possibly done, because it has to be futuristic. So what we can do, and especially bearing in mind that we, like many of the emerging economies and developing countries, as was happening earlier last 2 decades, we are not leading in terms of growth rate. It's the developed countries. So our scarring effect seems to be quite deep, and we are still in a struggling position so far as our pickup is concerned, and more so because when COVID started, for the last 3 years, from 2017 to 2017-18 to 2019-20, we have been constantly decelerating. All the 16 quarters we have been decelerating, kind of. 16-17 was 8.3%, 17-18 we decelerated to 6.8%, then 18-19 6.5%, 19-20 4.0, and then came COVID, a contraction of 7.0%, and 23.9 or 24% in the first quarter of 2021. So how to come out of that? Because still we should be searching for opportunity in crisis, and who can be a better person to suggest opportunity than Ramesh Manchanda. So Ramesh.
Thank you, Nirmal, and thanks all the participants for giving your valuable comments. Now, I just want to say something more on the role of economists, as Dr. Sharath has pointed out. Now, he feels that in the United States of America, perhaps the 15% fiscal deficit figure, they worked out to take care of the, say, reduction in the GDP anticipated. Now, I don't know. It may be true, it may not be true. But you're right. The role of economists is very important, very, very important in raising the resources from the right place where they don't hurt. You raise the resources and they don't hurt the economy, any sector. And then how you spend, where you spend. As Dr. Gangaya stated, this is very important, where you are spending the money. Now, the role of the economist in the government. See, you can't have an economist or a student of economics who had only academic kind of orientation and experience. It's simply not, it simply doesn't work in the government system. In the government system, you have to have economists who understand the economy, understand the practical aspects and interrelations, linkages of various sectors. More important, I have worked in the government for almost 4 decades, and you all have worked. When you are examining an issue in the government, you have to forget your own ideology, which unfortunately these academicians who come in the government, they have. How a person working as an economist in the government should function is, and we function like that. We have to analyze all kinds of views, the research findings, the things going on, and try to find out which are the solutions best suited in the given conditions and which is the best solution. Unfortunately, if you bring an academician, they are not able to do this job. In the economic survey, personally, I feel, you may or may not agree, economic survey used to give a factual position of the economy during the past 1 year, various sectors. Now this has become a sort of semi-journal kind of thing where the research findings of certain economists, CE, etc., they are being shown as if they are the statements from the government of India. No, these are not. See, we will have to be very careful when we are working in the government, the kind of the advice is given. This should be not based on one's ideology. You may like to have, as per your ideology, large scale sector should come, or we should spend more on the rural side, we should spend more on the health and all that. Here we have to have a proper understanding of the availability of the finances also. To what extent the finances can be stretched. These can't be stretched beyond a limit. We all know. We all know this. Now, I give you one very small example. Recently, a few days back, Economic Advisory Council, which gives advice to the Prime Minister, has recommended an increase in the retirement age of the government officials. I have a question to ask here. When we had pandemic at its peak, we were short of doctors, we were short of nurses, we were short of paramedic staff. And at the same time, every month end, we were sending hundreds of doctors, nursing, or thousands of them back home. You have reached the age of 60 years. Go home. What was this Economic Advisory Council doing at that time? Why could not they advise the Prime Minister, please give them automatic extension for 1 or 2 years? We are short of doctors, we are short of nurses. They kept sleeping. If I was in the government, I would have certainly moved a note on this. From here, I could not do that. So, Sharad, I agree with you. Right kind of people, right kind of students of economics who understand various sectors of the economy can do a proper analysis of the linkages. They should be there in the government and they should be involved in this task. You bring a chief economic advisor from outside, and what kind of experience he has? I'm sorry, but this is what I feel. The people who have been working in the government, who have worked, say, in agriculture, in industry, in commerce, in health, they can really play a very, very important role based on their exposure, their knowledge of the things. And when you give your advice on the basis of your actual ground realities, these are very relevant and very important. That's all. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nirmal.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you very much. I think all of us cannot agree more with you on the eminent role that government economists can play in formulating and analyzing the policies in a practical way, because having worked in the government, one knows how the government decision making takes place, how the cabinet system works, how the cabinet committee and group of ministers work, or group of secretaries work, and how to push things across, how to meander the ways. Very, very important. We are at a very, very difficult crossroad. We have to cross many bridges. Other day, the index of industrial production data has come, and that again um, indicates that our revival journey, our pickup process needs to be given further momentum. The very June data for index of industrial production shows that it is still lower by 5.2% compared to June 2019. So India has to traverse quite a distance. It's all lot of human issues are there, the educational divide, the digital divide, all those things need to be taken care of. And one very important point which we could not discuss in detail today, Dr. Sharath mentioned about a structured way of encouraging manufacturing sector, because the country's planners and politicians really understood that our share of industrial production, the share of industry has to go up from 15% to 25%, but that did not happen. And manufacturing only can provide a kind of employment, small scale sectors. And of course, our SME sector received a very big jolt with the COVID, and even earlier, a lot of disruption took place. We have to revive that, and we have to constantly, unless we can transfer the excess reserve army that we have in the agricultural sector. We cannot have permanent solution, because that is the potential of all social tension. And because landless laborers, 15% kind of 50% of the population producing 15% of the wealth. So that shows the severe degree of underemployment and very big hinterland of low productivity. This structural answer has to be found through very systematic transfer of people from. We have to find employment in the rural areas itself through agro-based micro industries. A lot of ideas are coming, but it is not really fructifying. So this very structured approach, otherwise the poverty issue, which is increasing the number like anything, there is various target. 80 million have joined the poor in India due to COVID, that kind. And again, we had crossed a lot of distance by bringing down the poverty numbers, and we were very confident that poverty level has come to 20% or something, but COVID has really again raised the issue. So that is a big how to bring about transformation in the rural area through rural industries, agro-based industries, where we can find employment for our rural people, and especially in the context of the unemployment that has increased due to lack of employment. Another thing is that income divide. While people are suffering, some of the top corporates are they're earning record profits, while production is declining, while sales are declining. Some of the top corporates and the listed companies are making huge profit. I was talking about the transfer of people from rural area to urban area. My colleague Renu Kohli, day before yesterday, she wrote a very beautiful piece in Telegraph, and please look up that, and that's a very good one. So I would now. We can still spend some 2-3 minutes, and of course we'll have an informal session for 5 to 10 minutes once we stop recording. But Dr. Bhattacharya, Dr. Rajiv, Dr. Gangaiya, if you have still 1 or 2 points to make, you are most welcome. One by one. Dr. Bhattacharya, you have something additional to say?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay. Dr. Rajiv? Dr. Rajiv? Dr. Gangaiya? Dr. Gangaiya?
Yeah.
Okay.
In USA, it is not just immediate relief. The package also includes a long-term infrastructure development. That $2.5 trillion investment is actually for long-term investment also. So I think in India, of course, we cannot afford. We cannot have that kind of. It is something they call it is like. Again, the Roosevelt plan, which is rebuilding America kind of thing. So that's why the deficit is also more. So whereas in India we don't have such a long-term thing, we are not able to find resources for within the immediate span of time also. So that's the other point I think we have to note. And the money dispersal was also done like in here. the second-hand cars prices have gone up very drastically here because people have a lot of money. In fact, many people have more money than when before COVID. Some of the poor directly the money was given, so that has pushed up the second-hand car prices. So that is the kind of pumping in that has been done in USA. So that's the other point. Of course, they have the efficient system of depositing because the insurance, the unemployment insurance system, which is well organized. But we also have, see, we had Jandan accounts created. We could have actually done it, provided we had the money and then the kind of determination to pump in more money for, particularly in urban areas, urban poor. So I think that's another point I just want to make. So with this, thank you again, all of you, for giving me this opportunity, and we will have a more time. Nirmal, I would like to just leave because I have to go for a driving test. So now it is morning for me, so I have to go. So I'll take leave and then we'll meet again. Thank you.
Many thanks, Gangaya, and thank you for your very useful points. And we'll also finish in 2-3 minutes. Ramesh, do you have any further last minute point to say something?
Not exactly. Just one small thing which comes to my mind is that we should not overdo also for certain section of the society, because our resources are limited, and certain sections of the society are getting more and more importance. They are taking away a larger, much bigger slice of the available resources. But I think we can talk on this later, sometime later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. And Sharat, would you have some last remark?
Nirmal, you unmute yourself.
Sharat, so some last minute comment, if you have something we should bear in mind, like Ramesh was telling, that is, we should be careful, some cautionary note. Thank you.
Not really. That's fine.
Okay. Before I end the recording, one thing I would like to mention about what Kaushik Basu said in his piece in Project Syndicate, which also came up in Brookings Institution publication also, that is Changing Map of Economics. So on this, he raised a very, we discussed that paper in our last panel discussion, but at this point, I think we need to reiterate. He said that he made the point of other regards. He raised the ethical issue. That is, I am well, but I'm not concerned about whether others are well. So we need to develop that ethical perspective that others also should be well. We should not forget the Lehman Brothers moment when, when the financial sector in the West, they behaved in such irresponsible way because it is other people's money. OPM at that time they used to call it. So here also what Dr. Kaushik Basu says, other regards. We should be mindful of other regards, and time has come. COVID has taught us to be responsible and bring an ethical dimension into economics. That is, he brought out it in a very eloquent fashion. The main theme of International Economic Conference in July, triennial conference, was capitalist economy at crossroads. So what should we do, government, because there are market failures. So with that note of other regards, we need to be mindful of other regards. So we conclude today's discussion, but I would like to immensely thank each of you, Dr. Sharat, for excellent paper, and Ramesh for raising such important issue, Dr. Rajiv, Gangaya, and Dr. Manas Bhattacharya for raising very, very pertinent issue. It has been very successful. And that is what happens when people with 4 decades of development experience share. I think that and the entire people, youngsters, and other citizens gain out of this process. And very, very important point about the role of government economists. Thank you very much for Ramesh for that. So give me 30 seconds and I will end the recording and then come back for 5 minutes chat. Thank you.